Yo, hello. Welcome to another episode of Proof Beyond Reason. Proof. Yeah, we need like those little filter effects afterwards.
We need to get a keyboard that has all the sound effects.
True.
And then you just remember the studio that we were doing work with before.
Yep.
The dude had like all the sound effects, and that was pretty dope.
Yep. I mean, I could bring my keyboard. I have a little MIDI controller on the side.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. That'll be so dope.
But yeah.
So today, lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna jump into conspiracy theory versus conspiracy fact.
Dun, 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 dun.
You know, kind of going off of that, I was in Maine last week, and I got to drive by Stephen King's house.
Ooh,
It was pretty
Stephen
cool.
King.
It's creepy at night.
Inspiration.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy at night. I had to go for work, and there are no lights on the street. It's pitch black outside. So I parked in front of his house, and I threw high beams on. And
You threw high beams.
yeah, and then I took a picture. I took the best picture I could take, and you just get super scared. You're like, uh-oh, I think like demons or something just gonna come out of that thing. Look, this is the picture. Check it out. I'm showing Geology the picture right now.
Oh, snap. And I have a sound effect for that. Let's go.
So that was fun. Going on that trip to Maine, that was good. It was good business and a good time, and I got to meet some really cool people. The food is not that good, but shout out to all the people in Maine. Next time I'm there, if you have recommendations to restaurants, please send me an email, proofbeyondreason@gmail.com, or leave us a message on our Facebook account. I could not find a good. I tried this restaurant called Governor's. It was all right.
It wasn't the main course.
It was not delicious. It was good, but it was not that delicious. We have some really good news, though. Geology over here, he's got a book that is coming out. So tell us a little bit about that.
December 12th, a book is coming out. I'm just kidding.
What is it called, EJ?
The book is called Kairos. For those of you who do not know the meaning of Kairos, Kairos is a Greek word meaning moment in time. And just a quick summary for those of you who like those sci-fi or time-related books. It is about a guy who basically is stuck in a loop. Now, I do know a lot of you are saying, oh, that's a common thing, but it's a twist to it. So, I don't want to be spoiling all that, so you guys can get interested, read the book, check it out. It's going to be on Amazon December 12th, so that's within 7 days. So, yeah.
Well, by the time they listen to this, it'll be just a couple of days. So.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
it'll be like 4 days away.
Yeah. So check out his book. What is it called again?
Kairos. And if you're looking for my name, I am using my pen name for those of you who do not know. So, my pen name is Lucius Alexander Wolf.
Spell Lucius.
Lucius.
A Wolf.
Wolf.
WULFE.
Correct, yes.
It's a dope name. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of jealous. I'm kind of jealous. I'm gonna write a book. Mike the Baptist. That's it. Done. Exclamation point.
Hey, but weren't you writing a book before?
I was. I gotta talk to you about that for real. Like on some serious. So right after we record this, I'm gonna talk to you about it. Because I need to push that out. I have a good idea, and I just I dropped the ball. That was my fault. That was my bad. But we got the podcast out, which is important.
Yeah, that's true.
So jumping right into it, conspiracy theory versus conspiracy fact, and there's a lot of discussion and debate around this topic because we had addressed the topic of fake news several weeks back, and this kind of goes in line with that. But I think something to think about is a few years ago, there was such an emphasis on the conspiracy theory world, specifically looking at the Illuminati.
Yep.
Everything and everyone, that was the word of the day. It was the Illuminati. Oh, that's the Illuminati. And they would turn on a Lil Wayne music video and, oh, that's the Illuminati. And people would start to freak out and just throw that term out without really understanding what it was. And I feel like conspiracies in general became diluted as a result of that. It was almost like another conspiracy that this was pushed out for the purposes of diluting the impression that conspiracies are true, when in fact conspiracies can be true.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. There are some conspiracies that are truly theoretical, and there are a lot of assertions associated with specific claims. On the other hand, there's a lot of evidence pointing in the direction that says, man, it's very difficult to deny the claims because so much fact is coming from investigative sources and proven sources that it can't be conspiracy theory anymore. Now it's migrated to fact. So that's kind of what we're going to tackle today. And I have a list of a few things that are current. So you mentioned earlier flat Earth.
Flat Earth is a common thing going around right now in the whole conspiracy / underground world, especially for those conspiracy theorists who are or claim to be Christian, especially. They like to point out that the Earth is not round or spherical, that it is more than just, it's like a snow globe, so to speak, but not those newer snow globes where everything is like a globe, more like the ones you pick up at a dollar store, that it's like the flat in the bottom and it's just like a dome.
Oh, like the long picture that it's
correct,
flat,
yes.
and then that's weird. I don't understand that. I don't understand that at all.
I mean, I'm gonna pull up real quick some of the things. This is something I sent to you guys when I started researching about it. Because believe it or not, at a time when I first started researching about it, I was kind of iffy at first, but then I started to read through some of the things that were discussed. But there's a book called 200 Proofs Earth is Not a Spinning Ball by Eric Dubai. For those of you who want to check that out. But I don't suggest taking it seriously until you do research. Alright, and I'll just throw out one or two or three things that he points out. So we have number 2. His second reason why the Earth is flat. The horizon always rises to the eye level of the observer as altitude is gained, so you never have to look down to see it. If Earth were in fact a globe, no matter how large, as you ascended the horizon would stay fixed and the observer / camera would have to tilt looking down further and further to see it. That's just one reason. Then you have number 3. I'm not going to read all 200, so don't expect me to read all 200.
I hope not.
But I'm going to read this one. This one seems interesting for all those people because it has numbers so people can actually check it out. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, as NASA and modern astronomy claim, spherical trigonometry dictates the surface of all standing water must curve downward on easily measurable 8 inches per mile multiplied by the square of the distance. This means along a 6-mile channel of standing water, the Earth would dip 6 feet on either end from the central peak. Every time such experiments have been conducted, however, the standing water has been proven to be perfectly leveled.
Well, it would be perfectly leveled if there are external forces that are causing it to remain level.
Gravity, the magnetic field of the Earth.
Correct. So, dang, right there, like, this dude is tripping.
Yep.
It sounds smart because he's throwing out terms, but there have to be other external forces that are causing it to remain as stable as it is. And I think that points to some intelligence as per the design. We're not even going to go into that, but you know, that right there just tells me the debate continues to point back to the intelligence of what we see in our universe. So,
I mean, even talking about in scripture, Genesis, I don't remember exactly the verse, but it does talk about that the earth hangs like a ball or like a sphere or globe. I don't remember the exact term they did use because I remember I've read like 6 or 7 different translations of it, but each one specifically states the earth is round.
Let's see. I'm looking it up now real quick. Got to do quick research, make sure.
But yeah, this is something I've encountered countlessly, and it's divided up, especially between us, I would say Christian truthers, so to speak, as we call ourselves, but they have really gone off edge, so to speak, because I usually would talk about, hey, have you encountered this new thing that we're researching, and then people would be like, oh, you don't believe in flat earth, so automatically I'm pushed to a certain boundary. Or if you do believe in flat Earth, we easily just say, "Hey, no, you're dumb or stupid," just because you believe in that type of thing. But conspiracies all around exist, and that's one of the things that's prominent right now, especially today's age.
Yeah, I'm not searching it correctly, so I'm not even gonna attempt to find the verses, but it does say some things here of, I guess some terminology when you hear the four corners of the earth. Some people are taking that to mean that the earth is flat, or the Bible insinuates the earth is flat, when I've read in other claims that the Bible does not at all affirm that. So we probably have to dive into that a little deeper. Maybe that's a whole topic that we look at.
Yep.
But some of the other theories that have been coming around, at least the new ones, and we'll talk about some old ones as well. The war on drugs. That's been a big claim, because the conspiracy behind the war on drugs claim is that it was a ploy to lock up minorities, essentially. Yep. So they wanted to take all black citizens, all Latino citizens, and throw them in prison for, the government pumped drugs into society, knowing that we would be tempted as minorities to want to sell, because we didn't have the type of jobs that were paying the type of money that was necessary for society at the time. So as a result, we started selling drugs, and police started cracking down. They were cracking down on the drugs that were being sold, which was pushed by the same people that were cracking down, essentially. So it was a ploy. It was an exercise to get us locked up, and prisons are benefiting financially from from the war on drugs. So that's why you have prisons that are filled with Latino and black citizens, because it was a crackdown.
And I mean, we have a movie coming out. We were just talking about this. I don't know the exact name, but it stars Tom Cruise. He's supposed to be a secret spy or delivery person for the CIA, delivering drugs to the United States.
Mm-hmm. And there are documentaries on Netflix as well that kind of talk about that. And again, the conspiracy is this is the reason why. Mm-hmm. Is it not? I mean, a lot of evidence is pointing in the direction that it's true. As a minority myself, who has been around drugs, who has been around the temptation to sell drugs, to make the decision not to do so, I think is at our disposal. I think just like anyone else, but I'm not saying either or. I think it's an interesting conspiracy, and the impact on our community, there's a good argument for it. So I remember watching The Godfather, and obviously it's a movie, but I thought it was interesting that they would plug into The Godfather. There's a scene where all the heads of the 5 families are sitting there, and Vito Corleone, this is in Godfather Part 1, I believe. Yep, Godfather Part 1. Vito, you know what scene I'm talking about? Yep. So Vito Corleone is there, and he stands up, and this is after he had gotten shot. And he stands up and he says he's not in agreement with this drug thing. But if that's going to be the case, he wants it away from children. He wants it controlled. He wants it away from children and women. So men, it's all right to do drugs. Yep. So then one of the other heads of the families, he stands up and he says, I don't want it near schools. I don't want it near blah, blah, blah. He says, let's leave it in the colored people. They're animals anyway, so let them lose their souls. That's almost verbatim of what he says. And I think that's interesting that they would put that in the movie, where the mafia is in control of drug sales and drugs entering, and that comment would be made. Leave it in the colored people. They're animals anyway, let them lose their souls. Who knows, right? Yep. Who really knows? But that's a big one. The housing crisis was another conspiracy. So did you see the movie The Big Short?
I have not seen that movie.
What? I'm going to hit you right now. You would absolutely love that movie. You would 100% love that movie.
Is it on Netflix? I can check it out.
Yes, it is on Netflix. I've seen, I don't know why, but on my phone, I don't know if it reads that I watch Netflix or something, like literally on my YouTube, on my phone, it'll come up clips of the movie. So while I'm eating breakfast, I'll just play the clip or whatever. Like I love the movie, and the movie is basically talking about the housing crisis that we experienced a few years ago in 2008, where the mortgage industry, they were just giving out loans to people that really didn't qualify, and there were a lot of defaults in the mortgages, and so because of that, the economy was so wrapped up in all the pieces that connected to the mortgage industry. When the mortgages started to default, money and the loans that couldn't be backed, the economy just went to chaos. And we felt that. We literally felt that in 2008. And so that movie depicts the version of it, and it's real interesting. But prior to it actually coming to fruition, the conspiracy was that was going to happen. Was that there were loans being given to people that didn't qualify, and it was just a corrupt industry, and no one drew attention to it, but it was a huge conspiracy that was out there. It was said that the economy was going to collapse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Turns out it was right. And so that's a huge example of a conspiracy theory that ended up being conspiracy fact. What other ones do you have?
I have currently chemtrails. I know you don't know that much about chemtrails.
Yeah, I don't
necessarily. Chemtrails is basically how the government is spraying or polluting the air with different type of chemicals to influence the people. Now,
that's right. Yes.
We have a lot of people talking about that. You hear from Alex Jones talking about it on Infowars.com. You'll hear a lot of conspiracy theorists talk about it. But specifically, this was proven to be fact in 1970, where the CIA director or the FBI director, he came on the stand in the UN and actually talked about how they can do it because it's research purposes. So they were basically pouring down chemicals. Now, a lot of people that are into chemtrails would say it's the planes. When you see the planes, the jet fuel behind it is the one that is throwing out the chemicals, but not necessarily, because it could be just magnesium particles in the air as well that's being thrown out and things like that. But basically, it's the government poisoning us. But other than that, we have, what is it, the Bilderberg Group. I don't know if you know about the Bilderberg Group, Mike. So the Bilderberg is a group of people. Now, this is not necessarily what Mike was talking about earlier about the Illuminati. Bilderberg is a group of corporate leaders, politicians, or famous presidents, prime ministers, things like that. They get together once a year in a meeting, and they discuss world issues, what's going to happen in the world, and basically everything that happens in the world economically, politically, or whatever you can think of, they decide it in that one meeting. And they all meet up, and they all leave. And then we had a journalist in the 1986, I believe, if I remember correctly, by my research in my head. I don't have it written down, but if anyone knows the correct date, you can drop it off in the comments. But there was a journalist who disguised himself as a waiter during the time. And any paper that they use, they usually either burn it, trash it, or they just keep it all in their head. Well, some guy was talking about some issue that was going to happen in the world with during the time it was the early bombing of 91, the World Trade Center, and they discarded the paper, and he took the paper, and then 2 days later he was being followed by a car, like a black van, and the journalist was never heard from again. But before he was disappeared, he produced the information, and then years later we had the 9/11 world bombing.
So this was the 9/11 bombing.
This was the bombing in
before the 1991. Yeah. I was in New York at that time, and my mom was working in the city, and she worked for the commissioner's office, and she would have to make commutes from the commissioner's office there. And that day, I think she was en route when she was stopped because the bomb had already happened. So that's crazy. And to that point, I truly believe that's fact. Like there are groups of people that meet that are of a certain status, a certain influence within communities that they meet to discuss issues in the community and determine the direction of the community. In this case, the direction of the world. When you're thinking about the richest, most influential people in the world, that's something big. So just let's scale back just a little bit. Most of you that are listening to my voice, and myself included, you don't necessarily, maybe some of you do, right? But for the most part, you don't necessarily have much influence in your neighborhood. Think about that. In your neighborhood, in your street, you don't really run things in your street. You could. So if you joined the organization, maybe the homeowners association, you started going to the meetings, you had a voice, you start to push things forward, you volunteer time, suddenly people know who you are and you start to make a name for yourself. You might become an influential person within your street, within your block, within your community. That's realistic. But as you start to span out and you start to make connections and you start to meet people and you start to join societies or you start to volunteer for organizations, your name starts to get known. Little by little, you start to have an impact on your community. You get a vote in maybe a decision that's being made, or you are the first to hear about maybe there's construction in your city. You're one of the first ones to hear about the construction before it hits the papers because you are part of organizations that are speaking about these things. And those things exist throughout every city. I've become fortunate enough that I'm starting to get part of that. Like, I'm starting to get into these circles. I'm no how in an inner circle, right? I'm not having dinner with the city council. I'm not having dinner with the mayor and all that, but I've been in the room with some of these people, which is pretty interesting. A big room, like a huge room, but it's pretty cool to be in that room. But I think little by little, as I'm shaking hands, I'm meeting people, I'm volunteering time, you start to make an impact and you start to become known. Your voice starts to be heard because you have ideas, and if you have some dollars and you contribute money, that's going to go a long way. So I went to an event recently where the president of Disney was getting honored because she volunteers so much time and gives so much money back to society that you have no choice but to listen to her and to hear her. So if she says, I think these people need to get their own street dedicated to them or something, you're gonna listen to the lady because she's given away so much money in her time, and her status is huge. The president of Disney, that's big. Like that, you don't get much bigger than the president of Disney. We're talking Disney Orlando, Disney California, Disney Europe. Like, this is big. This is big time. So I'm not surprised that there are groups of people that meet who are even more influential than her, who have more money than her, who are decision makers within entire industries. Like, these are the people that are sitting around for the banking industry, the top 5, 6 people who run the banking industry because of how much money they've made, their influence, the time that they've dedicated, only sleeping 3-4 hours a day because they're so involved that now they're at this status where you can't do anything but listen to them. And so they are experts in their field. So, of course, they're going to meet, they're going to make some decisions, and you and I are not going to know anything about it. So conspiracy theory would say there's a handful of people running the world. I think that's pretty true.
Yep.
I don't object to that. I think that does happen. It's happening in our city. It's happening in your city, wherever you're listening to. It's happening in your job. Gio's job, getting out of work so late. There's corporate executives who are meeting, making decisions about the direction of the company that you have no idea about. You'll find out about it eventually, but they're going to know way before you do. They're going to be talking about it for 2 years before you find out, before it gets cascaded to you, that this is the direction the company's going in. That's kind of the nature of the game.
Yep.
So I think when it comes to running the world, absolutely, there's billionaires, there's princes, and who have owned oil and who knows, right? All these people, they're up there and they're running things. So let's call them the Illuminati, I guess, for the purposes of the conversation. But they're real, and we've heard a little intermittent things. I've heard Kanye West. He mentioned it. He's like, the people who are running the industry, they don't allow me to have my own line. They don't allow me to have X, Y, and Z, because they're in a position where they can say yes or no. They've made enough money. They've carved the name in the industry. They're, 300 years of 300 years, all these generations that are just like, we're sitting at the top and we run this thing. So yeah, we're going to make the decision and say, we're going to make it hard for you to be at our level. You can be at your level and you can make a living for yourself. You can make $300, $400, $3, $4, $5 million. But if you're trying to get to that $100 million mark,
And even in the music industry, I mean, the term Illuminati was, first coined, I would say, by Prodigy. Early, 2000s? If I remember correctly. And then that not early 2000s, it was like 90s.
Yeah, it was
before that. Because then Tupac started talking about it, and then that's when everyone started. Yeah, that's when everyone started incorporating slowly, and then that's why they said he was killed, because he started actually releasing information about it, all that stuff.
Dave Chappelle got chased away. Martin Lawrence went crazy. Certain people of influence who decided they weren't gonna go with it.
When you go against the system goes against you.
And again, I'm not that, and I'm not in support of it, right? But I'm not surprised by it, because if you work for a company, a corporation like the big company that G works for, if the people who make decisions, the handful of people that are making decisions that run that company, they say we're going to go in a certain direction, and G says I'm not going in that direction, and he gives any problems, they'll just terminate him. They'll say,
they'll get someone who complies.
Correct. Yeah, and that's how you run business. That's kind of how you run all these other things. So it's I don't know. It's just not such a stretch. Kind of makes sense. Now, when you talk about killing people, holy crap! I don't know.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, those are big accusations when you talk about, Pac was murdered because he said Illuminati. He started. I mean, who knows?
And that's the fine line with conspiracy theory and conspiracy fact.
Correct.
I want to state it out from the definition right now. Conspiracy is the act of conspiring, which means making secret plans jointly to commit an unlawful or harmful act together. Let's lay that out right now. So we can be here just sitting down doing a podcast, and we're not really conspiring.
Correct.
It's just us. But you can go to China, and you could be doing the same podcast to an area that's not necessarily Christian, and that's conspiracy, because that's unlawful what they're doing, because they're not reporting to the government that they're doing a religious act. And that's the fine line people always tend to get confused with. So they usually say you're a conspiracy theorist to me, but I don't necessarily believe in theories. I believe in what I can actually prove, what's fact, what's actually have been proven. So that's why people always tend to get confused, saying that's a conspiracy. So the music industry, that's a conspiracy, they could say. But I could be like, that's not a conspiracy necessarily. Or they could say something, for example, Aaliyah being killed, that was a conspiracy.
Because it was... So there were events that led to her death. And
Correct.
And the fact that she died, or something illegal happened, or... Is that what...
It's like the case you brought in Kanye. So Kanye started up as a college kid. People would hear about him, but he didn't really blow up until, his mom passed away. And something that we tend to do in the conspiracy world is they call it blood money, meaning you have to sacrifice the person you care about the most and you blow up instantaneously. I threw out Aaliyah. Aaliyah's boyfriend was a producer at the time. When she died, he blew up. Kanye was just starting coming out. No one knew about Kanye. When his mother died, he blew up.
So the conspiracy, I guess, would say you need they needed to sacrifice these people?
It's basically things that are against necessarily nature itself, or what you would necessarily seem as normal.
That's interesting.
So it's like a very fine line. So we can even talk about not even just killing itself. We could just say the aliens contacting us. That's conspiracy only because if aliens are contacting us, it's withholding information to the public.
Got it.
So it's being in an unlawful way to the right of people to know that we are not alone. As a part to, if it's just a conspiracy theory, which we can say it's conspiracy theory because we can't really prove aliens are contacting unless you have an actual evidence of an alien in front of you, even though you can have things that happen. So you can have the UFOs in the early 1940s, 1930s.
With the terrible Photoshop job.
With the terrible Photoshop job, or the unidentified flying objects. But then what did we see during the course of 1960s and 70s? That it was proven to be Hitler practicing doing his own aircrafts, or the United States was practicing their own aircrafts. So that wasn't a conspiracy theory because it was debunked and seen that it was just a conspiracy fact.
You know, I was in, not to go off topic, but a few years ago I was in Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh, where I've never been to Roswell. I want to go.
Well, it's a hilarious town because it's tiny, but as you pull in, there's green aliens everywhere. So they'll have, it's like fake ones too. I'm turning my computer around so G can see.
Oh,
see?
snap.
That's what it was like. So they're like these green aliens. I was driving. There was like Advanced Auto, and there's this green alien on the outside of Advanced Auto. McDonald's, there's like a spaceship, and it's pretty bad to be honest.
For those of you who are Hispanic, I don't know if you guys, or if Mike knows about this, but Yellow Locos. They're like these little green aliens that Coca-Cola announced like in the early 90s.
I never knew that.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, the town is just dedicated. They have pictures in the hotel I was staying. There was a whole wall dedicated to pictures, and the pictures were so fake. So fake. And I mean, but the town, I mean, they know. They're just like, hey, you know, whatever. But who knows? In this picture right here, they have a Walmart. On the side of Walmart, there's an alien picture. Like, they're obsessed with this thing.
But I mean, the reason I threw out that is because if you throw out in the side of the conspiracy theory world, you have then the reptilians and the lizard people that basically control us from the planet Anunnaki, all that stuff. So that's why
Obama was reptilian.
Yes, Obama's reptilians, and you'll see those YouTube videos of people's eyes changing and stuff like that.
Oh snap! This was actually the hotel I stood at.
Oh, okay.
That's hilarious.
Okay.
There's
no green alien in the front. But
inside, it's full of aliens, dude. Like I thought I was gonna sleep.
But yeah, more than likely, you're gonna see events, like big events that happen. So you'll have the JFK assassination. That's a huge conspiracy, and it's still conspiracy theory only because no one can prove what happened. Because there's 20 things, or more than 20 things that you think can happen. It could either be we had, I mean, something I researched as of late only because I saw it at a post that my friend posted on Facebook, which was this gun that was taken out in the, what was it? The early, I don't remember the exact date. I'll get back to you guys on that. But it was a gun that it shoots like this icicle bullets with poison. And basically, that's what got shot. And then that's why he died.
Who was this that died?
JFK. That's the gun they used. And they even threw out the gun in the UN. They said that it was patented and everything. And that's the recent research I found for the JFK assassination.
What in the world? I saw, well, they have the video on YouTube. Like, that dude's head explodes, son. Like, it's, I don't know if ice can do that. That jump.
Yeah.
His head exploded. The side of his head just came off. Like, that. Oh my God. Ooh. There were a few other ones. I mentioned the Mafia earlier, the movie, The Godfather.
Yes,
the Mafia, it didn't really start to come to light until about the 1950s, 1960s. La Cosa Nostra. Started in Sicily, migrated over here. And you know, they just started to become very powerful in their organized crime, and there were rumors that the mafia was in bed with politicians, with police officers, with the CIA, FBI, and so forth. And then, you know, in the 1960s, 1970s, all of that came to light where that it was in fact true. And then you started seeing movies come out like The Godfather, and then there was just this obsession with mafia life between, especially in the movie industry, because it was coming to light between the 1970s and the 1990s.
I think you were the one that told me about this movie about the CIA having a group of 5 agents, and they went and infiltrated, acting like they were their own mafia group, and started taking the mafia down by themselves. Was it you the one that told me that? It was a movie that came out that I remember.
And I feel like it sounds familiar.
But they did it only because the CIA supposedly lost control, or the FBI lost control of the mafia. So
it's super interesting that once that started to become public, suddenly the mafia disappeared.
Yep.
But the reality is, they're here. They didn't just disappear. There was too many powerful families for it to suddenly disappear. And I keep referring to movies because I feel like it relates to the public. The public understands movies rather than a lot of the research. So in the movie Godfather 3, you have Michael Corleone. He becomes a politician, and he's like knee deep into the Catholic Church. He's knee deep with politics, with attorneys. So the goal was for his son to become an attorney so that the son can work for the family and all that. And so just imagine if all of that is true. And in many cases, we've seen where some of the mafia bosses, they got taken down, but their children were old enough to already be working for the government and be attorneys and influential people in the society. There's rumor that, and you can trace it back when you do the research, that the owner of the UFC and the Fertitta brothers, those who owned the UFC for a long time, they're in the mafia. Like, they come from mafia roots. And so the UFC from its commencement was mafia money. And now they're billionaires. They're still part of the same family. The family didn't just disappear. So that's just one example. Yeah, they just invested in something else and they become owners of teams and whatever. And again, very, very influential people. But when you dig deeper into the background, it's mafia backgrounds, mafia money. That's where they got their start. So all interesting stuff, when it comes to that. But that's an example. The mafia, an example of what was deemed a theory, ended up being a reality. Fact. Yeah, being fact. There's a couple more that I want to look at.
Something to touch as of late. Big Brother. I know you mentioned that earlier, but it's something that I also research a lot, which is Big Brother. You hear that terminology a lot. The eye is always watching you. Big Brother's always watching you.
We are watching.
But that was easily seen as fact when this hacker. We all know it. We all have seen the movie. I keep forgetting his name though.
Not Anonymous.
Not Anonymous, no. He has glasses.
Shout out to Anonymous. They be putting in work, dude.
But yes, the hacker that revealed that Facebook and
my wife was watching that movie. What's it called? Yeah. I know he was with the CIA.
Correct. Yes,
he was contracted. Yeah, but yeah.
I keep forgetting his name, and I should know his name. But when he revealed to the public, and then Obama was asking to put him in jail, and he had to go to Russia. But he revealed everything that the government was doing since 9/11, and they saw it as a threat, or that people needed to be watched just in case to make sure that traffic was good. That was a conspiracy theory long in 2000, and then it was just recently just proven to be true. And then they had to backtrack. But yet that's why you were just talking about that sometimes the clips would come out for Google, but people don't read the terms and services or conditions for Google.
Because it's so long, you just say accept.
But during all that, I don't remember, I used to know the exact number where it is, like, I think it's paragraph 18 or something like that, but it specifically says, or now it shows you in a little box, where it says Google will record your statistics and analytics so that they can send it to companies. So you can click on Facebook kittens, and you'll be searching on YouTube or Google, and then automatically you'll see in an ad, kittens. Or you'll go on YouTube and you'll see kitten videos as a recommended watch.
Now,
and you're just like, what's happening? Who's spying on me? But that's the thing.
Like I said with my phone, because I'm connected to the Wi-Fi and the Google network is picking it up, I watch a movie, and next thing I know, on my YouTube channel, that's all I'm getting are clips for the movie that I just finished watching. It's so crazy.
that's just how it is, and they've done it now like that. So now it's public they do it, but yet people still think, oh, Big Brother has already been proven to already spy on us from the get-go. That's just what they do.
Well, the theory, another theory was the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration.
Okay. Yes.
Where they have cures for diseases and they're not releasing it, or what we had heard recently, and I mentioned this in a previous episode about the sugar industry. Sugar industry were backed by big dollars, and they needed to get backing for their products, so they paid off who they needed to pay off. They got the food pyramid, the nutritional pyramid, the nutritional facts that is put out by the FDA. They gave them big dollars so that they made sure that sugar and anything related to sugar was infiltrated into that. And so, and it was discovered recently that all of those exchanges happened, and really the cause for the obesity epidemic and many of the health issues that we have are attributed to poor diet, specifically tracing back to sugar. So it was a theory, it was a conspiracy, that you mentioned, but it became fact. It was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Not that Wall Street Journal is necessarily as credible, but when it came out, it was alarming because the reason it came out was that the public was already made aware of it. Then it came out, and the Wall Street Journal, no, it was the New York Times. New York Times put out the article and just shut it down, to where now, sugar industry is finding alternative ways. They got money, finding alternative ways to still, to get us hooked. So,
I mean, in touching back, I should have said this when you were talking about the drug industry or the drug problem. But we talked about this in fake news, but with the whole marijuana, cannabis, and now we have that, recently, I think last month, they already proved that cannabis actually helps with destroying cancer cells, and now we have hospitals using cannabis oil to help counteract seizures and all this stuff. And this is something that people used to always say, no, that's just a theory, that's not true. And yet, look, science itself is even proving that it's to be true.
It's so strange, like all these things. I don't get it. I don't get it. And in no way are we promoting go smoke weed. Like that's not the promotion. That's not the endorsement at all. But when you look at the effects that legal drugs have, and then you have something like marijuana, you kind of wonder, right? If it doesn't have a label on it, it's gonna.
Or like my psychologist, he would typically just say, "Oh, we can give you some new pills for your OCD or depression," and I'm just like, the side effects are mild depression, suicidal thoughts. It's worse than what I originally have.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And I mean, something that we like talking about in the conspiracy world is saying that there's no product in pharmaceuticals, or there's no people in pharmaceuticals without them having more problems and still.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you need to have business continuity. Yep. And so if you look at the case with Saab, the vehicle manufacturer, they went out of business because their cars were made so well that people didn't need to buy more cars. They didn't have repeat customers. They had to acquire new customers again and again and again because people were just keeping their cars. You got Saabs out there, 20, 30 years old, still running good. Business model went to garbage, so that you actually have to promote cutting back. There was that commercial. I don't know if you remember. There was a gum commercial. I forget what it was. And she was chewing the gum so long that they would have teams of people just come out and slap the gum out of your mouth or find a way.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I think it was five gum. Was it five?
Yeah, I think so. So that you can chew another piece of gum. Like, it's funny, but it's kind of real, right? The flavor of your gum just disappears, and you need to have another stick and another stick and another stick. It's hilarious. But kind of sticking with that.
No puns intended.
Yeah. Boom. The Holocaust. People say the Holocaust didn't happen, which is so strange. So strange.
I've encountered only just 2 people that say that, and then I just go back to or I had there's this older gentleman who's the grandson of a Holocaust survivor, and he just literally just takes a picture, like he screenshots a picture of his dad, not his dad, his grandfather's arm right next to him. He was like, yes, this wasn't true, yes, but yet you have people who actually encountered that, and then you have those conspiracy theorists who just say, no, that was just in a select place, in a select camp, and it didn't happen. Even though you have thousands of survivors, thousands of people who were near death, and then the U.S. troops just came and saved.
I mean, you have photos, you have videos of the incidents. Like, you have the concentration camp still still available for touring, and so I mean, to prove
that is a conspiracy theory in itself.
Correct. Yeah, that's just insane.
Now, the theory that is more up to date as of late is Mike talked about this 2 episodes ago. No, last episode ago in Losing Salvation, which was CERN. CERN. For those of you who do not know what CERN is a company in, I believe, Australia. Is it in Australia?
I think it's Switzerland. Let me double check.
It's either Australia, Switzerland, one of those countries. But CERN is a company that they shot a laser in their machine.
Yeah, it's in Geneva, Switzerland.
Okay, it's in Geneva, Switzerland. They shot a laser in the machine, and that's supposed to open a portal. And that portal opens a dimension, which now is intermixing with our own dimension. So what we used to know is no longer what used to be. So we have, like Mike explained, Chick-fil-A. It was spelled C-H-I-C-K and then filet, but now it's C-H-I-K-L-A. Or, I mean, filet.
The other way around. So apparently it didn't have the C. Now it has the C.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's things like that. That are, movie clips that have been altered. Like, apparently they're starting small in the way they change things. And then eventually it gets, to the place where you won't even remember what happened in your childhood. Like, whatever happened in your childhood is going to be totally different because CERN entered us into a new direction.
That's very dangerous to think about, especially we were just talking to someone when we were first starting out the podcast that said if you read scripture, it says the wolf and the lamb, and there's like, no, remember, it used to be the lion and the lamb. And then I'm just like, no, let's check the ESV, King James, let's check all this. So then we constantly hear the lion and the lamb because Jesus is the lion. And we also hear about the lamb got slain. So we hear things as we're going. It's like I was to tell Mike something, like, I'm working tomorrow. And then he goes to someone else, hey, G's working tomorrow. And then that person goes saying like, oh, he's working tomorrow, but he forgot who that is. So he just says, oh, Mike's working tomorrow. And then as it's keep going, you just keep hearing the same thing and the same thing. And you automatically believe, hey, look, Mike's working tomorrow. But it was G that was the one supposed to be working tomorrow.
Yeah, it's confusing because some of the questions that are asked are not things that you're concentrating all your attention on. So if I went to G's at work, and he's working hard. Like, I pass by his job when he's working. He's focused. And when I pop in, he's like, it takes him a second to recognize me almost. And then he goes, oh, snap, look who it is. Right? But imagine I go to G while he's mid-stride in work. And I ask him a question about his car. Just out of nowhere. He's going to be like, dang, I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe, he's not really in tune with it because I'm like, hey, your back bumper, like, it has like a blue color.
You're going to start thinking about it in your head.
Yeah, he's like, maybe, I don't know. Like, you're not focused on that entirely. You're doing something else. The arguments and the discussions with CERN, that's what happens is the people who speak with. But I think the major thing was, okay, the laser, right? Laser's hitting, it's creating a new dimension. So there was rumors out there that CERN was doing, their thing underground, and they were spawning holes in water, and the holes was actually a black hole. So they were saying black holes were being formed on Earth in the water.
Scientifically, if that was the case, we would all be dead instantaneously.
Yeah, so I was like, for real? So I was looking it up, and I'm showing G from my computer right now. So there's an image of a hole in the middle of the water. And so these were the pictures that kept coming up, and these are the pictures that people were referencing. I'm like, man, just looking at the images alone, I was like, that's pretty crazy, right? So G's looking at it. Does that look pretty crazy?
That looks pretty crazy, but I've seen those holes before.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So I'm like, yo, that's crazy. So I started doing research. I'm like, okay, so where's this at? So I started doing research on where it's at. Found where it was. And then it turns out the hole is a man-made hole to push the water. It's in a dam. So to prevent the dam from flooding, they create that hole. So when the water rises above that level, the hole's going to get covered, but the water's flowing below, so it goes into the stream and it goes away from the dam. So there's design behind it because people put it there. But people are using that to spawn the theory. To say, look, this is what's happening. It's all fake news.
And that's what a theory essentially does. The conspiracy theory does. So don't get this confused with conspiracy facts. Theories tend to do that. They'll feed off of what you want to believe, necessarily. Or if you want to say, we can even go to a topic. I was just telling Mike this, and even he was not entirely aware of this, I believe. But in scripture, talking about something in our point of view, or how we talk about scripture, where we have the Da Vinci Code. Mary Magdalene, Jesus was alive, he got married, or people saying that his body got stolen. But we have in Matthew 28, I'll start from 12 to 15, and it says, "And when they had assembled with the elders and taken counsel, they gave sufficient sum of money to the soldiers, and said, 'Tell people his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble.' So they took the money and did as they were directed, and this story has been spread among the Jews to this day." Now they're talking about the resurrection of Christ. People already were, massive amount of people were already talking about that Christ was resurrected, his body disappeared. This is when the women came, the angel spoke to them, and the apostles, or the disciples at the time, they found out that Jesus was alive. And then you can keep reading on how Jesus greeted the people and was seen by hundreds. But during that time, the conspiracy was that the elders at the time, the Jewish leaders or the governors, were being deceived into believing that Jesus was stolen at night. So then we have people saying from the Da Vinci Code, stories popping up saying that, oh, Jesus wasn't really resurrected, he's dead, he's not a divine being, when yet you have the accounts of hundreds of people showing the conspiracy truth to it, because we see that even Matthew talked about it, saying how the Jewish leaders were paying off soldiers, and we, even if we were alive at the time, we can go to the soldiers, ask them. Of course they're going to deny it, but you can't deny what you have in the back, because what did soldiers used to carry around back in the days? A coin purse. They couldn't hide the fact that they got paid. I mean, unless you left it in the house, but yet you could still go to the house and prove the point. It's not like now you have a digital account so you can hide it. It was a lot easier back in the days. And yet we see that constantly. So people doing conspiracy saying that, oh, Jesus didn't exist, Jesus wasn't divine. And that is something that you have to see as a theory.
And I think at the core of all of this is we have to be mindful of the information we're getting, right? So that kind of stems back to the episode of fake news. Check it out. I forget what number it is. I think it's episode 3 or something. One of the earlier episodes. Check it out. I think it just stems back to the notion that we need to be mindful of the information we're receiving and not freak out or get scared. I know when G and I were first diving into all these conspiracy theories and connecting different things, he was in a different level than I was, but you start to freak out. You start to
you get called at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Those 2 a.m. conversations, like, yo, dude, I don't know, man.
Move to China and disappear.
Yeah, it's just we need to do something. But it's the reality. You just have to be mindful. Use wisdom when you're discerning the information. And some of the information, some of the conspiracies that are coming out, some of the fake news and so forth. Again, conspiracy theory versus conspiracy fact. Get the facts. Make sure you're doing your research. Make sure you understand what's going on, and just become well acquainted. the things that are theory, the things that are meant to throw us off and lead us astray, those things are designed, to go against the natural order, for it to go against, essentially what is right and what is true. And as Christians, we are called to hold to what is right and what is true. Mark 13:22 says, "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform signs and wonders to lead astray, even if possible, the elect." So those who are part of the family of Christ, there are these kinds of things that will happen. Maybe even making holes in water,
How cults start out.
Yeah, things are created so that we can be led astray. Revelation 16 talks about demonic spirits performing signs abroad for the whole world to assemble, so that they can go against God. And so it's important to know, Ephesians 6, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, and against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places.
We're not told to believe blindly.
Yeah.
Scripture always affirms that we need to study, be approved, and always to test the spirit. Always research. I mean, Paul, when he talked to the Greeks at the time, he was not even he was not a philosopher, but yet he took the time to sit down, talk to them, and get to know the culture as well as the people and what he was going to talk about. And he talked boldly. I mean, the Spirit gave him the wisdom, but as well, he took the time to study. So just like Paul did, we also have to take into account that no matter what we hear, especially even if it's in the church, always make sure you reaffirm to Scripture, study it, pray, meditate daily, always.
And that's so important, super important. So just to close out, be diligent, stay in your word, don't be deceived, be in prayer, super important. We're at war here. Especially in our age where just so much information is being produced that you can easily get lost. And I think, even from my standpoint, I'm doing these podcasts and so forth, I can get caught up in the day to day. We were praying right before we recorded the episode, and, the verse that stuck out to me was that, Jesus saying, for all that is in the world is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. It is not of this world, but it is not of the Father, but of this world. And the world is passing away along with the lust of it, but those who do the will of my Father will abide forever. And for me, I feel like at times I get caught up in the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. I get caught up in what my next steps need to be, or I get caught up in, who I'm rubbing, shoulders with, or, what does my agenda look like for the day? And all that's meaningless if I'm not spending time in the Word. It doesn't have to be 10 hours. It doesn't have to be 20 hours. It's just having intimacy with God's Word and staying aligned, staying afloat, having that navigation. When airplanes are flying, they can be flying all day, but they have to have some direction. They need to know where their landing strip is and, what is the destination. We need direction. And so, as believers, He is our compass. He's the one that is leading us. And, through His Word is where we get affirmed the promises and the truths that He has for us, and through His Word we combat all of these issues that we have. And if you have doubts about the Word, if you're listening to us for the first time, if you have doubts as to the historical accuracies of the Word or whether it's reliable, check out our past episodes. We have a specific episode where we talk about that, the relevancy of the Bible, the historicity of Scripture and Christianity. Go ahead and check it out.
And even contact us. You can email us, proofbeyondreason@gmail.com. We have our own separate Facebooks. We also have our own Twitters, so you can DM us. I mean, we're seen as administrators in our page, Proof Beyond Reason, on Facebook, but I'm there as my pen name, Lucius A. Wolf. Mike's there as Mike Covert.
Yep. So just hit us up so that way we can answer any questions that you have. But that's all for today. If you have other topics that you want to talk about, send us a message and we'll try to respond to you as soon as possible. But if you have a specific topic you want to listen to, hit us up. But in the meantime, it's Mike the Baptist signing out. We love you guys.